The Downtown Rams podcast is brought to you by Rams On Demand, Seat Giant, Vibe 305, and RWO, Rams World Order. Now enjoy the show.
Down the middle, to the end zone, caught by Brandon Cooks. Shoot your arrows.
It's picks. Nickel Roby Coleman
throws. Enzo caught, touchdown. Tyler Higbee. Cooper Kupp walks it out of the air and gives the Rams the lead. LaMarcus Joyner returns to the lineup with an interception in London. 35-30. Robert Woods, first down 20. 10-5. Touchdown. LA! No, it's Goff who keeps it. And Goff goes crashing into the end zone. Aaron Donald almost beat the football there and comes away with his third sack of the afternoon. Met immediately and sacked. Corey Littleton, have yourself a day. And he gets gobbled up. Savage has to eat it as Michael Brockers picks up the sack. He's decked by Ebu Tom. Picked off. Marcus Peters strutting his stump. Mark Barron the last 4 weeks has been a Pro Bowler.
Oh, it's picked off on the play by John Johnson.
After the throw, and we mentioned that is his 8th completed pass in his career.
Cousins sacked. Ndamukong Suh.
Of all the guys, it's the rookie John Franklin Myers who knocks it out of Cousins' right hand.
Todd Gurley, 20, 10, Gurley for MVP. Touchdown LA.
Welcome back, guys, to another Downtown Rams podcast. It's episode 169, and I'm going to be joined here in just a second with Alexis Kraft, of course, and Northern Colorado wide receiver Alex Wesley, and Kansas center Alex Fontana. So it's another NFL draft season podcast. It's going to be 2 interviews. That's going to be the show. I had a lot of fun, interviewing those guys. Unfortunately, it's taken a while to get the Alex Wesley interview out, but we got it. I interviewed him around the playoff time, so he kind of got pushed back, and it's a fun interview, and it was a lot of fun doing it, and he's a great dude, and just really was able to see him at the Combine, so it was cool to watch him compete. So Alex Wesley of Northern Colorado and Kansas center Alex Fontana, and then that's going to be the show. So I hope you guys enjoy, and here are the interviews. All right, guys, joining me on the Downtown Rams podcast, I have Alex Wesley, Northern Colorado wide receiver. How's it going, man?
It's great.
That's awesome. And, I saw, FCS product and dominating the FCS receiver track star. You remind me of an old Rams receiver by the name of Chris Givens. Just thought I'd throw that out there. Saw that you entered the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he actually went to my high school.
Wait, what was that?
Chris Givens, he's from my same high school, so funny that you threw that name out there.
That's funny. Out of all the names. So, yeah, I mean, I see it. Track star. I think you could take the top off the defense, and I don't think you're going to get overlooked by your size because you got good, you're 6 feet, and, as long as you're not in the fives, I don't think that's going to hold you back. Trust me, I'm 5'8", so I would know. But, with that being said, congratulations on the Senior Bowl invite. That's awesome. That's really when you first came on my radar. So, props to you. What's been absolutely, what's been this whole, draft process? Like, what's it been like? I mean, obviously I know you guys you don't really get to finish your college career. It's just, you go right into this whole process if you choose to go into the NFL draft. So, how is that whole thing going for you so far?
It's been fun. This past year, we definitely had a lot more scouts out at our practices, and so having to kind of put that on the back burner and still try and get through your season, it takes just a little bit more focus and trying to get yourself to realize that you have to have a good year first before you can move on to that next step. And so I had people around me that were helping me to stay focused and not get too ahead of myself, even though you have the scouts out there every day. You got agents calling and all that kind of stuff. So, it was fun, but it does add an extra level of stress. And, if you can deal with it, then, you'll be able to move on. If not, then, you won't have as good of a season and probably won't make it to that next step. So.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Obviously, you guys being student athletes, you go through a lot, both on the field and off the field, in the practice, on the practice field, in the training room, in the classroom, all that. I can't even imagine. With that being said, obviously I mentioned earlier track star. How fast can you run?
And what kind of race are we talking? A 40 or?
We'll use the thing that NFL scouts like drool over, the 40 time.
I got my I don't know if I'll say that or not. But we'll see at the combine. I'm hoping to run 4.3. If I can touch that 4.3, then that's the number I'm aiming for, but we'll see.
All right, and apparently you just dropped that on my podcast, but that's awesome. Man, you're going all over the place. Senior Bowl, Combine, love it. I think it's really cool. I mentioned it to you, before you came on my show. You're actually not the first Northern Colorado guy I've had on here. I've had Kyle Sloter, former quarterback there, who's now with the Vikings. He's been on the show like 3 or 4 times. He's been a friend of the podcast for a while, so pretty cool to have you on. Really quickly, not to get completely off track, but you did play a little bit with Kyle, from what I believe. How was it playing for Kyle Sloter and seeing him transition to the NFL?
It's fun. Me and Kyle still talk a little bit still. So just he was a gunslinger in college. He was always a guy to make plays, and he's doing the same thing with the Vikings right now. So, it's fun to see guys from my school go on and do great things. And so, the fact that I got to play with him and now I get to watch him, play at the next level has definitely been fun.
Yeah, without a doubt. And going back to yourself, obviously, you wanted to play football. Obviously, you're going in the NFL draft. What made you eventually want to pursue a career in it?
It was something that I always wanted growing up. I know everybody says that, but it was always been my dream. And when I got to college, I had a choice to make whether to run track, continue running track, and make that a career, or stick with football. And football's always been what I loved, and so I decided to go in that direction.
Yes, absolutely. And then obviously growing up, you watch a ton of football if you're really into football. Who was your favorite player to watch?
When I was younger, I'm a Cowboys fan, so
oh boy,
kind of towards the end of Emmitt Smith in that era. So I like to watch them, and nowadays it's Odell Beckham. I don't know, he's just fun to watch, and so I don't know, but growing up, I just kind of watched football. I was never like I like this one play. I love the Dallas Cowboys, so I just love to watch them in general.
Well, you picked the 1 week, Alex. Rams Cowboys. It's gonna be fun this weekend.
Yeah.
Hopefully, now you put pressure on me. Now I have to release this before the game as opposed to after, in case. But no, that's cool though. Appreciate that answer. Who would you compare your game to? I know you mentioned you love watching Odell. I know I mentioned Chris Givens, but who would you compare your game to?
I wouldn't say that I play like one player. Like I said, I love watching Odell, Antonio. So I kind of take things that I see and try to incorporate them into my game. And if it works for me, then I'll use it. If not, then I won't. So I don't think I play like one person, but I try to take things that I see people do really well and see if I can put that into my game and see if it'll work for me.
And, with that, obviously your speed would be up there, but what would you say is your best skill as a receiver?
Route running. With the speed, I can get DBs to get on their heels and, kind of play a little bit further off because I have to respect that. And then, the route running comes in to where, I can get open because of the speed factor that I bring. And so I think the speed with the route running definitely has made me a dangerous receiver.
Yeah, and what do you feel you have to improve on?
There's always something you can get better at, whether it be with the route running or, being more physical, catching every ball. You start to see those crazy stats from DeAndre Hopkins. And so, just the little things that go into playing football.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, what would be your preferred role in the NFL?
I think everybody wants to be that guy, so obviously not everybody can be in whatever role that whatever team I go to puts me in, I'll accept that role and continue to try and make my role bigger on the team. But obviously everybody wants to be that star guy at the end of the day.
Oh, yeah, for sure. That's kind of a stupid question to ask a receiver that has, you're 6 feet. You run probably going to be a 4.3. That's probably a stupid question to ask. But, hey, some guys like to play in the slot. Some guys like to play on the outside. I don't know anyone that says that they want to be a blocking receiver or possession receiver. That just kind of happens. But, definitely interesting. Sometimes you will have some players that kind of just want to remain in their same role. And then you have guys that are just like, well, I'll do anything. I'll even throw the football if I have to. So, it's kind of all over the place. With that being said, obviously we mentioned, your role in the NFL. What NFL teams, if you can recall any, have scouted you thus far?
I think 30 out of the 32 teams came to the school during the football season. So, I've seen every team pretty much during the year. So that was pretty cool. Like I said, this year we had a lot more scouts coming through than we've had any other year. So it was definitely a cool experience.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, obviously mentioned the Senior Bowl earlier. Is there anything in particular you're trying to show off in front of scouts, coaches, and even fans alike?
Just to get rid of the small school stigma, I guess. Just because I played at a small school doesn't mean I can't play with the guys that are at the bigger schools. And so I just want to go out and prove that I can compete and, catch some balls and hopefully show everybody that the speed is real.
Speed is real. I like that. I totally hear you there. Do you feel as though, coming from the FCS, do you feel you have like a chip on your shoulder, like something, you just kind of carry that, or, carry it possibly in the NFL, or not really?
In a way, yeah, just because, I went to Northern Colorado, those guys that are at the SEC schools or stuff like that, they've never even heard of me. So, I feel like in that way, yeah, there's a chip on my shoulder, but I know that I can play with them and maybe even do it better. So, I've always played with that confidence, and I'll continue to play with that confidence.
Yeah, without a doubt, I totally get that. I told the last person I interviewed, it's because I think a couple years ago I had Dalen Williams, quarterback from Dartmouth, and he was saying really the only thing that separates, when you're looking at like an Ivy League versus an Alabama, the only thing that really separates, a small school is the depth. You guys have the talent. It's
right.
really just the depth. And I think that's something that really can't be stressed enough. And that's why it's good, to have the Senior Bowl, to have the East West Shrine Game, the Collegiate Bowl, all those, because it kind of gets your name out there. I remember last year, I was at the Senior Bowl last year, and, I saw, like on my phone, I saw on Twitter, some guy was getting called up, a guy that my friend was talking about, like, raving about all year, but he also works for the school, so I was like, all right, like, he came from Penn, and I was like, okay, this Justin Watson guy is pretty good. Now he gets drafted 5th round by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and, it just kind of goes to show you, it doesn't matter what school you go to. I mean, I can't even name half the schools these random, star players come from. I mean, I remember, what's his face, London Fletcher. I can't even recall what school he went to. He was the Rams, middle linebacker for them and their leader. So, talent comes from everywhere. I mean, I think that's pretty obvious.
Right.
Is there anything like crazy, anything that like separates you as a person from, any other prospect I've ever interviewed? Like anything crazy you have to share or anything like that?
I don't know if there's anything crazy. I mean, you mentioned that I ran track coming up through all the way through college, and so I mean, if anything, I have that track background, and when most guys were resting in the off season, I was out on the track. So just that hard work and being able to go from season to season without a break, I guess it kind of separated me from everybody at my school, and I think a lot of guys in the country.
Yeah, so using the cliche word that like an NFL Network person would use, like you're a grinder.
Right.
So no, that's awesome. That's really cool. For my listeners out there, who is Alex Wesley?
I'm a chill guy. When I'm not playing football, I just like to hang out and relax and hang out with my friends and stuff like that. But on the football field, I'm a competitor. I like to compete in anything I do. Whether it was walking to class and I saw somebody walking the same way, I'm gonna beat you to the door. So, I'm just a competitor, and that's it.
That's awesome. Hey, Alex, that was awesome. I appreciate you taking the time. Look for me at the Senior Bowl. I'll look for you. I will be there, and I'd like to meet up. I don't think an interview will be necessary since we've already done that, but would love to say hi. And, hey, man, I'm a fan for life. I'll be rooting for you, and I'll be following you throughout your career. Let's stay in touch.
Yep, thank you.
Absolutely. Take care.
Yep, you too.
All right, guys, joining the show, Kansas center Alex Fontana, who's heading into the NFL draft. How's it going, man? Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. It's going well. Just I guess finished training for the day and just enjoying the nice California weather.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. It's about 12 degrees where I am right now, so I wish I was in California. Yeah, but like Jake said, thank you so much for coming on, and we're really excited to get this thing rolling. So, first question, when did you start playing football?
So I originally started playing football in the 6th grade. That's when I started. I took actually a year off in the 7th one. Wasn't sure if it was for me or not, but the 8th grade I was a little bit more interactive with the game. That's when I probably really started, was like the 8th grade. And then up until now, yeah, my college career at Kansas.
Yeah, of course. And, I want to know, and we ask everybody this question, who was your favorite NFL player growing up?
That's a hard one. Who did I like? Honestly, some people that I looked up to, like growing up, were like Ndamukong Suh. I liked to watch him while he was on Miami Dolphins, because I used to play defensive line. So I looked up to him just because how of aggressive player he was, and I tried to mimic that when I was younger. But throughout the years, I probably looked up to Mike Pouncey again on the Miami Dolphins when he was there as well, just being a center, and I kind of looked up to him. Like a few years back, probably like 5 years ago. So those two guys, like just their style of play and their mean edge, kind of influenced me to be the player I am, and that's kind of how I wanted to mimic my game. So I definitely looked up to those two.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely not. Those definitely aren't bad choices. Normally we get Michael Vick and Ray Lewis, so it's cool to have some different players as the answer for that. But you have an interesting path to the NFL draft. I mean, you started at New Mexico Military Institute, and then you transferred to Houston, and I mean you started quite a bit there, and then your senior season, you suffer an injury that sidelines you for the season, so you have to redshirt. And then basically you end up at Kansas. So, tell us a little bit about that whole, kind of crazy journey.
Well, you're missing one step, surprisingly. I started at junior college in Brooklyn, New York, actually. That was my very first junior college. I played my first JUCO season there. I didn't particularly like the atmosphere there. It just wasn't a great environment for me. So I decided to go to New Mexico Military Institute. That was an interesting time there. Just being a part of the military lifestyle is a lot different. Waking up every morning, making your bed, marching to breakfast, eating with your crew, and then, going to class. And then you just have to pretty much be 100% focus on the military aspect of things, and you can't really stray away from that. So I thought that was pretty interesting, and that definitely gave me a little bit more structure in life. And then following there, I did go to Houston. I went there for 2 years. They weren't really recruiting me all too heavy throughout the season, but I had made friends. Not made friends, but the coach was talking to me all year, and it just so happened to work out that they were able to give me a scholarship, and that was a year after they won the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. So, it was a good time to be a part of that program, so I decided to head there. So I played my first year. I actually didn't play center there my first year. I only played one game at center, started one game at center, but I played right guard, left guard, and center at Houston. My second year, I did get hurt. I got hurt like the fourth day of training camp going into the season, so the end of August of 2017. And that sidelined me for the year, which was pretty difficult, being sidelined and watching your team. So that was a hard time. But following that, I thought that if I wanted to make it to the next level, I needed to elevate my game and play against some better competition. So that's the reason why I went to Kansas. I didn't feel like Houston was the right spot for me at the time anymore, just because I wasn't able to get those 2 solid years in, and didn't feel like that would get me a good opportunity at the NFL. So I thought playing in the Big 12 would give me a better opportunity. So I decided to transfer.
Yeah, and it sounds like you had quite the college experience. You definitely got to play at a lot of places. Do you have a favorite memory from college?
Favorite memory? I have so many memories that are my favorite, but I think my favorite memory was probably going down my first year at the University of Houston. Probably my first bowl game that was probably my best memory, because as a junior college player, you don't really know what to expect going to D1. You just know that it's going to be better than what your life was at JUCO. But my initial thought, when I first got to Houston, was cool. But going to the bowl game at my first bowl game was at the Las Vegas Bowl. So just going there and sitting on first class flight and having a recliner chair as a bed, it was just a whole other lifestyle that my life had elevated to during that bowl period, and just getting all those gifts and seeing Las Vegas. And then the following year, another memorable time was the Hawaii Bowl with Houston, and just being at 2 amazing places like that I've cherished those memories for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was the toughest player you went up against? Because I mean, I know you say you left Houston obviously to play against some better competition for sure, but there are definitely there's definitely some tough talent that you went up against, of course, when you were at Houston. But obviously you go to the Big 12, and there are guys kind of all over the place, myriad of guys. So I mean, who'd you say is the toughest player you went up against?
Well, in terms of practice, obviously at Houston we had Ed Oliver there when he was a freshman, and playing against him those 2 years, and he's a pretty good player. I mean, he's a very good player. So going against him was pretty difficult, and it was a good experience going against him in practices. But I'd probably say in the Big 12, actual competition, game time competition, was the nose tackle from Iowa State. He's a pretty big load to move, and they had me one-on-one blocking him a whole lot during the game. And I would have to say he was probably the best competition that I went up against in the Big 12.
And, you blocked for freshman sensation Puka Williams. What was that like, and just playing with him and seeing what he can do? And, how good do you think that he can be?
I think Puka is just he's just getting started, if you ask me. Blocking for him was pretty awesome because all he had to do was hold the second for, open a hole for a second, and he would squirt through there. He's so small and fast that, I don't know, people weren't able to catch him. And he's tough too. He's a tough runner. So blocking for him was honestly a privilege. I was happy to block for somebody like that was so passionate for the game and that just wanted to be he always wanted to elevate his game and be great. So just blocking for somebody like that was amazing. And I think there's no limit to how good he could be if he maintains healthy career and stays out of trouble.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you there. I mean, just seeing some of the plays he was able to make. I mean, obviously you and Hakeem and, of course, Dwayne, I thought all did a great job of springing him open, especially in the Oklahoma State game. I thought you all put on some good film there. And, I've watched every game, but going back and rewatching the games as of recent, I would say Oklahoma State. And then, of course, the Oklahoma game where you guys didn't matter that you were playing a team that was going to be in the college football playoff. That was one of the most entertaining football games that Kansas has put out there in a long time. So, I do want to get your take. What were your thoughts of that game? I mean, that was wild.
The Oklahoma game, honestly, I was shocked. I was honestly shocked that we were running the ball like that. I didn't anticipate the game to go that way, but it did. And honestly, any run play that we called, it was working the whole game. We were running particular plays where we had a pin pull where I would block back on a shade and our guard would pull around, and that play we probably got about 200 yards in that one play. Everything was just working that game that game in terms of the run game. So the atmosphere was cool. I think we shocked the crowd a little bit that Kansas doesn't have a great reputation for football, that we actually put up almost 400 yards rushing. So it was honestly a great game, a good experience to be in that.
And you went up against two stud interior defensive linemen just in practice alone, Daniel Wise at Kansas and Ed Oliver at Houston. What was that like?
So again, obviously going against Ed, it makes you a little bit better as a player, of course, because just of his level of play. But going against Daniel in practice, I didn't get the opportunity to go against him as much as I would have liked. But he's an intense player, and he just wants to be the absolute best that he could be. So it was just, we'd always have a great atmosphere at practice when things got intense. But just going against Daniel, it was a good experience too. He's powerful, has good hands. He's overall a great player as well.
Oh yeah, and I think those two are going to go pretty high in this upcoming draft. Again, we just spoke to Daniel, and it's going to be hard to get Ed on the podcast. So, yeah, they're both going to go pretty highly. So, obviously, you went up against some big-time talent, whether it was against you or on your team. But, I mentioned them earlier, Dwayne and Hakeem. What are your thoughts on those guys, playing with them, and what do you feel like they bring to the table, potentially at the next level?
Sure. So I'll start with Hakeem. Hakeem offers he's very athletic as an offensive lineman. That's kind of what he's known for in our O-line room, is just his athleticism. And he's a little bit unique the way he plays, just because he has the athletic ability that he can get away with some stuff other people can't. So for him, I think at the next level, I could see him playing on moving inside to the interior, either center or guard at the next level. And I think that he brings he's very passionate for the game. So having him or playing with him was great. And then Dwayne's a big body. He's 6'4". When we played, he was 6'4", 340. And just playing with somebody like that and doing double teams with him was great, just because we never really gave up too much penetration when we were on double teams together. But at the start of the season, things were a little bit difficult just because we've never played with each other. Like our whole O-line was pretty much brand new. But I feel like towards, the 5th, 6th, 7th game, towards the end of the season, that we actually all came together pretty well, and we were doing well overall.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely towards the end of the season, I think you guys worked really well as a cohesive unit together, and it was definitely fun to watch. And you also, had the opportunity to play at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl alongside Steven Sims and against Dwayne Wallace for some reason. How was that experience?
That experience it was an enjoyable week. It was something that, you kind of get a flash of what the next level is going to be like, just in terms of how many scouts were circulating around at the Intercontinental Hotel and how many scouts were circulating at practice. It just gave you kind of a different outlook. You felt that it was different from college. It was at that time it felt like, wow, this is really what's happening. Like, this is the next step in my life. And it was just a great experience overall. There's learning from the coaches that we had, and the experience there was great. Steve Sims was also, he did a great job over there as a receiver. And then, funny enough, Dwayne was a late incoming guy for the NFLPA Bowl, so that's why he was on the other team. But seeing him play on the other sideline was pretty interesting. I was watching him when he was on offense and I was off the field, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I thought that was funny, like, that you guys got separated. But I mean, it makes sense for sure. Now that you explained it, but who was the toughest player went up against at the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl?
On my team, we had a kid, I believe from, I want to say Eastern Washington, a D1AA school, and he was pretty good. He was a big guy, pretty mobile, moved pretty well. On the other team, I think that I played against somebody from Troy or somebody from Colorado. They're both big bodies too, big bull rush guys, so they're a good competition to play against. But to be honest with you, I think the Big 12 competition was a little bit stronger than what was there.
Yeah, and something that I'm curious is, in your opinion, what do you think is your biggest strength as a player?
So my biggest strength, I think, being just technically like blocking back is something that I did a lot this year. So I feel like that's one of my strengths, is just down blocking and blocking back, just because I had so many reps at it this year during games. And I think pass blocking is a good strength of mine. Just my first 2 steps off the ball and pass block. I feel like that's a pretty good strength of mine as well.
And of course, we have to ask, what would you say is the biggest, area of, improvement left over, in your game coming to the next level?
I think an area that I can improve in that will actually help me in the next level is just the first two steps off the ball, just that quickness and getting in a good base and frame. I think I could always work on that as a player. I don't feel like you could be. I don't feel like you could ever not stop working that and improving at that. So I think that, and probably at the next level as well, striking with my hands. I feel like I did a good job in college, but again, you can never be too good at that. You always want to elevate your feet and your hands. I feel like those 2 areas are always nonstop improvement.
And, just for fun, who's a guy that you most want to stonewall in the NFL?
What's that? Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Who in the NFL would you most like to stonewall?
Oh, that's a good question. I want to say Aaron Donald, just because of how good he is. I mean, that's the best guy, and I always want to go against the best guys. So if I could go against him and, like you say, stonewall somebody of his caliber, then I know that I'm supposed to be in the NFL and I belong there.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
He's definitely the best. Definitely the best.
I had no doubt about that.
Yeah. and I mean, normally, like, you could kind of be like, okay, it's a Rams podcast, you're kind of sounding biased, but I just feel like Aaron Donald's that one player where, I mean, if you don't think he is the best, or at least top 2, on defense, I don't even know what to say to you. He just plays
yeah,
a different game.
Yeah, the numbers, the production that he had has been unheard of in this era. So I mean, yeah, it's for somebody to say that he's not one of the best right now is outrageous.
Oh, I agree. With that being said, we talk about who you most want to stonewall, but we'll talk about on your potential next NFL team, who would you most want to block for at the next level? Not necessarily team, but like if there's a running back that you would like to carve out running lanes for, or if there's a a quarterback that you'd really like to protect at the next level, who would that be?
That's difficult. I feel like I would just be grateful to be in the NFL. First of all, that would just be a great opportunity for me to be in the league. I haven't really put much thought into that of who I want to block for. I feel like a young quarterback, I feel like maybe a Russell Wilson or a Dak Prescott, Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. I feel like quarterbacks like that. I've played with quarterbacks like that at Houston, the mobile quarterbacks. I feel most comfortable blocking for guys like that, and I could tell by the way they carry themselves that they're very professionals and that they have great passion for the game. So I guess those three guys, just mobile running backs and guys that have great passion for the game.
Yeah, no doubt. And those are guys who would certainly be a lot of fun to block for and play for, and I imagine just be on the team with, and guys who are extremely talented. And we ask everybody who comes on the show, we are an LA Rams podcast. Have you met with the Los Angeles Rams yet?
I did actually at the NFLPA Bowl. We sat down, we talked briefly, just kind of the interview process of knowing who I am, background and whatnot. But we didn't really go too deep. But we did talk briefly.
Yeah, and just doubling back to you mentioned Prescott and you mentioned Russell Wilson, guys that are mobile. I have to ask you, like real quick, because being a Kansas fan, I'm always interested to know this answer. Kansas is a little different at quarterback. So I mean, you have Carter Stanley, you had Peyton Bender, and of course I think he brings a lot to the table as a mobile quarterback in Miles Kendrick. But there's three different play styles there. How do you go in knowing that I'm going to start the game with Peyton, but Miles might be in the second half? Like, how do you prepare? Is there a different blocking scheme or a different method of blocking? Do you have to kind of prepare for as the game goes on, or how does that work?
So I know when Peyton's in the game that you have to, if we're passing the ball, you have to be on point with your pass protection, just because I know he doesn't have the ability to escape the pocket. He's not that type of player. He's not a mobile quarterback. He doesn't move around a lot. Whereas Miles, you're holding on to your blocks, but you feel your guy trying to run to the right as fast as he can. So that Miles has ran outside of the pocket. So there's not a particular game plan that we have for those two guys. It's just that you, as a player, you kind of know when Payne's in the game, he's not leaving the pocket. He's going to stay in there. He's a pocket passer, which is fine. But when Miles is in the game, you have to be prepared to move a little bit more if he wants to leave the pocket, or just stuff like that. If we're going to run an RPO with him, it's just you have to be prepared for him to run the ball.
Yeah, definitely, and a question that I like to ask at the end here is, who is Alex Fontana the player, and who is he as a person?
So. As a person, I'm pretty laid back. I'm quiet, just hardworking, humble. I just try to be my best every day, and that's just the person that I am. I'm a very family oriented person, but as a player, there's a different side of me. That's when the little more crazy side comes out, and the more intense side, that in the sense that I'm locked in and I'm focused, and anything that comes in my way, I want to move it, and I want to attack it. So that's just the player that I am. Two different guys on and off the field. So I would, if I had to, short summarize it, off the field, quiet guy, humble, just just does his thing. But on the field, I try to be as much of a force that I can be, and as fierce as I can be.
That's awesome, man. We really appreciate you, taking time out of your busy schedule, to sit down and do this, podcast with us. I think it's been a lot of fun, and we'll be rooting for you, obviously, and let's keep in touch.
Awesome, sounds good. I really appreciate being on the podcast as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alex. It means a lot.
No problem. All right, thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into the show. If you're still listening and you're interested in partnering up with us, be sure to email downtownrams@gmail.com, or you can reach us on any social media platform. All business inquiries are welcome. And of course, if you're not interested in something like that, but you do want to support us, you believe in what we're doing, and you want to help out, first off, we greatly appreciate it, but it's not necessarily a need. We're not going to beg, but if you would like to help us out, you can go to our Patreon account. It's patreon.com/DTR, and you can sign on to be a patron for Downtown Rams. Patrons that start off with the silver tier, $5 a month, will gain access to all exclusive interviews before they are dropped on the podcast. Thank you guys so much. Take care. Horns up.